Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, November 19th, 2023, and it's almost 11 p.m. Um, let's see. I've gone to my headset, back to my headset. I think I mentioned, I know I did, at some point that if I make an hour video, this pressing in on my head hurts, but I'll just suffer it for you all. Offer it up to God. So, what's going on here? Just it was on the news just a while ago that President Carter's wife passed away. Her husband has been in hospice care for some time, I think February or March, and I think she just went in. I'm not sure she actually officially made it. I think a day or two ago they said that she was going into hospice care. I guess you all know what hospice care is, don't you? That she was going into it, and now she's passed away at what age? 98 or 97 or something. I know it's here someplace. Now I can't see it. I'll put the link to this below, but 96, there it is right at the top. She and her husband, President Carter, were remarkable people. He was a Democratic. He was Democrats. They were both Democrats. And he barely beat out Ford for the presidency. And President Carter wasn't one of our greatest presidents. I mean, he was a decent man and a good man. But he sure wasn't a great president. He was courageous. He was in the Navy. Well, he was courageous in a lot of ways, and decisions and things that he made. He was just a remarkable man. Not a great president. He's not going to be on the list of great presidents. Both him and his wife, were very religious. That was an important part of both of their lives. And but that it feels so good that I know that I have totally given up on right-wing Republicans. Totally. Now, I've been a Democrat my entire life. My parents were Democrats their entire life. They were alive during the Depression, and they, Democrats, lifelong Democrats, which they should have been, and which everybody probably should be. Well, now definitely, with the way the things have turned in the United States. I have been, been a Democrat all my life. But there have been some good Republicans, but I don't think there's hardly any left now. And the Republican Party should be totally just, it's up to them though. It should just be totally done away with, and they should just start a new party and let the crazy, mentally ill, extremely prejudiced people who are Republicans and Trump supporters, fine. I mean, go and over to your Nazi party, go over to your racist party. But it just it just enrages me that these people are, claiming to be religious, claiming to be fundamentalist and believing in the United States of America and that God created the whole thing. I mean, now I cut these people. You can go back and look. I've got a record. You can go back and look and see my comments about the right-wing religious people. I said a lot of good people, a lot of decent people. I've said things I remember back in the past. Hey, if I don't agree with their politics or whatever and their stands on various issues, but if if I had a neighbor, I'd hope a neighbor would be one of these right-wing, well, not right-wing, but one of these religious people, that go to church on Sundays and go on Wednesday nights and all this type of stuff. But with the election, so I said good, and I even said good things about Republicans that I worked with who couldn't stand any of my politics. Republicans that, or I guess I should be talking about right-wing, religious people who think that Halloween is a horrible, horrible thing because, I'd forget or something, or, at work. Oh, are your kids enjoying Halloween, or did you put up, have you gone trick-or-treat? And they come back, oh, that's Satan's, whatever, that's blah, blah, blah. Okay, come, Okay, I mean, I could put up with that stuff. I could even put up with their, well, I guess I couldn't put up with it, but okay, they've got this, right wing. That's politics again. Well, I really had trouble with, but I didn't bring it out on these people, the ones that you see on television. Like when I had cable, cable television really. And I would go by. I would program out those ones that were religious channels, take them off, or I couldn't even get to them. But when I would go by the ones where they popped up on Sundays or whatever, I mean, it was just appalling that, send us your money, and God says that for every what you give will come back to you. God will send it back to you, 100%. You'll get back your money. What was the guy's name? What was the club or whatever? I'd go by there a few times and I would stop on that asshole. And I mean, just horrifically horrible. And people are, was it the 700 Club? What was it? It just made me sick. I remember once I went over, I can't forget it, because it was just so horrible. And then, of course, the lady that's there with him, oh, yes, whatever his name is, Anyway, they're reading, she says, I have a letter here from, I'll make up a name. I have from Mary Jones, and her husband, they're on a limited income, and prices have been increasing, and they just, they've been giving 10% to the church. They've been giving 10% to the church, and they don't have enough now to give 10% to the church and to get the medication, that the husband, maybe the husband and the wife, that they need, And she says, I want to ask you, Reverend, would it be okay if we cut back a little bit so we could get our medicine and, and whatever. And so then, the lady asked, what's his name? God damn. Anyway. And he says, no, that's God's money. What? And I thought, Jesus fucking Christ. So I went through a whole bunch of, now I was born, raised a Catholic. I went through the whole, baptism, uh, uh, the whole thing, every step of the way. Married in a Catholic church, all the way. Now, even when there was this stuff going on between priest and, well, it wouldn't just be priest, priests or brothers or, I don't think nuns, I don't know, but anyway, even the stuff that was going on, my feeling was sort of like with tongue in cheek, nothing sexual meant there, but sort of like my perspective, my way I looked at it was like I was a good-looking little kid. I was an altar boy. I didn't get touched or anything else. What's going on? Why did they neglect me? I'm kind of joking. He's not joking. But when the bishops and in the Catholic Church, and I guess also probably the other Protestant religions, maybe they're considered, the princes, or whatever. In the Catholic Church, it's like the bishop is like the prince. You got your, rank and file, parish priest and things like that. But then when they become a bishop, it's like they live in a mansion. Now, I'm sure not in every country, but then they have their thing where the bishops, they meet, the United States bishops all meet, and then they put forth with information that's hopefully in tune with, the Vatican and that type of stuff. But when they made it, when it got where it was political, these bishops, older men who are, they've got people catering to them and fixing them meals and just doing all this kind of stuff, and they're living like princes. And so then when it became political, and it wasn't. Well, of course, I'm sure there were and still are priests and bishops that are, trying to emulate, Jesus's teachings and things like that. But the council of bishops or whatever, they got together for pick, whoever you pick, if it's a Catholic running for president or anything or whatever, they come out, oh, well, he's in favor of, he's against racism, and of course they wouldn't put it that way, and they come out with, well, he can't come, whoever it is, our current president, by the way, that if he comes to, when he was running for office or whatever, if he comes to a certain city, the bishop, will say, well, since he's in favor of abortion, or whatever, he can't receive communion, in the Catholic Church, and that kind of, political, totally political, whatever. If you look back, you'll see where I put, well, if I were in that church, and the bishop or the priest, that's doing it, from the pulpit, I would just get up and disagree with him and walk out of that church, and that'd be the last. But anyway, I just gave up. That's it. There was a lot of other stuff, but that was, for me, it was political type thing. That's it. Now, I mentioned, if you look back in my, and there's a record of it, if you look back in my videos or whatever, I was saying good things about Baptists and the rest of the, Protestants and that type of stuff, and saying things like, they're good people, I don't agree politically with them or whatever. Okay. And of course it was getting harder and harder because the 700 Club or whatever that was, that type of stuff was like, and I had to, when I had cable television, when I come to those channels where the, Protestant is up there saying, the things that they said, I had to go by real fucking fast, right? But when they voted for Trump, and I didn't think they would. I mean, I knew that that's the way they were down, inside. I mean, I knew it, but I was giving them benefit of doubt. But when they turned out and are still, when they're supporting Donald Trump, that's it. Those people are, if you believe in sin, I mean, if you think, there's a God up there and all this kind of, and there's a heaven and a hell and that kind of, if you believe that kind of stuff, those people, unless they're mentally ill, now if they're mentally ill and they're a Trump supporter, they're in the right group, with him. But if they're not mentally ill and they voted for Donald Trump, that's it. That is totally, that's it. I can't say anything good about them if you voted, I can't come up with a reason unless you're really stupid or you're mentally ill or you're really, really, really stupid. And I don't think I can picture anybody being really that stupid. If you voted for Donald Trump and you're a supporter of his now, you're a worthless human being. There isn't anything I could say good about you. So that's it. And I have a track record. You can go back and I've said things about, good things about those people. But that's over. That's it. So, but anyway, the Carters, are Baptist. I think 100%. I think they're Baptist. Both of them good people. If there's a heaven, there's special place for there's a special place for them for sure. And there are other people. There are other people like them, I'm sure, out there. It's maybe just that they're afraid to be outspoken. There was something on the news about, and I forget, it wasn't the Baptist church. Forget, it was a religious, and a bunch of their churches, they have an organization, naturally, and hundreds of their churches are, the remaining, whatever their branch they're in, I forget. A bunch of them have broken away over the church's stand on homosexuality and a few other things. And I think things like, is it okay to have a woman ordained as, that kind of, so there's other issues, but I don't even think you would believe this. I mentioned it in the past. I swear to God, it was legit. Let me tell you. I think I mentioned it once or twice before. I was in, it's after 2000. I did the 2000 census or whatever. Oh, by the way, that's another thing, yeah. When I did the 2000 census, that's when they did a short form and a long form. That long form was, I think, a bad idea. But I happened to watch on C-SPAN the congressional hearings, and things then weren't as bad, Democrats and Republicans on, on the committee. And whichever committee this fell underneath, the Census Bureau had to present this to Congress, to this committee. Here are the questions that this is going to be the census if you approve. And so then the members, Democrat or Republican, whatever, why are you asking this question? And the Census Bureau came back. Every one of those questions they had to ask because there was legislation that required this kind of information. Like you're not going to build a veterans hospital in a place where there are no veterans or very few veterans, and a whole bunch. There's just a ton of questions like that, and I sat there and watched, which worked out great because I worked the 2000 census. This was being done before the 2000 census, and then when I went out, I had very few people, which somebody would say, and I'd say, and I would, you know, give them the information, or I'd say, somebody, very few though. Everybody was 2,000. There wasn't the craziness, you know. I ran into one person and I did all 3 or 4 phases of the census, and there was really only one guy out of that entire group. And they do the census every 10 years, there's a bunch of people, there's a lot of people that, well, they don't have any right. Well, there's very few things in the Constitution of the United States. Very few. It's a very remarkable document. I kind of wish they'd have put in some other shit, I'd like to have some stuff added to it. But the Founding Fathers were very, very good. But anyway, there was only one guy that I ran into who was, and I went to the door and he said, get off my property. I'm not telling you anything. You don't have any right to ask me anything. You get off of my property. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to try to help this guy. And I said, sir, could I explain something to you? No, just get off my property. Don't you come back. Whatever. I said, sir, and so I left. What I was trying to tell him, what I was going to try to tell him, but it wouldn't have done any good. Man, I'm so glad. After I did the 2000 census, and you can go back and see, I've talked about it many times, and how great. And I was doing the census in Missouri, and in a county or whatever, where there was a lot of religious people, all Catholic and Jewish and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of Protestant. When I think I was in high school, the church, the parish or whatever, wanted to do their own little census. They wanted to go out and ask questions and see how many Catholics are there in this county. I'm not sure how many counties they went to, or whatever, to find out how many Catholics are there. That's what they were interested in, is how many Catholics. And, the church, was the church big enough, for them and all that kind of stuff. And there was very few Catholics there. But all of those people were really nice. Now, we didn't talk about religion at all, but everybody was really nice. But, so when I did the 2000 census, that area that I was in that I did, was also, a Baptist and that type of stuff, and they were, whatever. And those people, and unfortunately, we had to do the short, now, I think like out of every 7 census that you'd get, one would be the long form, and then the rest were the short form. And nobody really should object to a short form. I can understand people objecting to, the long form, because it asks some things. I was embarrassed to, I didn't ask, I'll tell you the truth, I mean, you go to a fancy house, and is there a restroom in your, do you have a telephone, There was some of that. But anyway, these houses, these people that I called on, white, mostly white, white, Baptist or Protestant religion, all that kind of stuff. They had adopted black kids, white people who had adopted black kids or kids. They had adopted from, another country, I'm not sure if it was which, at that time, what the political situation was, and if you go back and you'll see, I was greatly impressed by the people that I ran into during 2000. But then after, like, when the next census came up, I was in Florida then, and I had no desire to do the census, and I think it was a little. I knew it was going to be, and then by the time the 2020 census 3 years ago, I thought, my God, I feel sorry for those people because of the way uh, well, in 2010, I think it was, yeah, 2010, in Texas. One example, a lady, she was an attorney, a woman attorney. Okay, that's allowed. Okay, did I sound like it wasn't? Yeah, you did. I'm sorry. Um, I mean, women aren't supposed to work. Um, and she had a place where a big, wall, a big, brick, not brick, but stone wall all the way around, and gated, a gate, not a gated like apartment, but her property was gated. And a census worker came, and she was a lawyer. He came to the door, not not the inside door, but her, outside, and she shot him for being a census worker. Now, I'm sure she was probably mentally ill, but still. So, but now I've given up on. Well, I gave up when that was it. When but Trump also got some white votes. Well, he got a bunch of the religious white folks. But that's it. I'm still not going to, like I worked with at a small hospital. We were all friends there, and one guy was a lab tech, and who was the guy that was on television like at midnight, and one of the early, right-wing people. But I don't think he's as crazy as they are. I don't think he would have voted. I don't know. What were the shirts he bought and ties and stuff? Because the guy, honestly, this lab tech married, a good-looking young man, married a good-looking. He was tall, and there was 2 or 3 female people at the hospital there that were interested in him. They liked him, and he was a lab tech. Actually, I think I should. He wasn't like a phlebotomist that is just anybody could. Well, I'm not okay. I shouldn't say that. But a phlebotomist, you could go to the hospital and say, "Any openings? Yeah, we need a phlebotomist, somebody who goes and just draws blood." And they can show you how to do that, and you can get making pretty good money. I mean, better money than maybe, well, not maybe, better money than working at Walmart or something. And but Brad, he went to KU, Kansas University, 4-year degree, and I'm not sure what it was, chemistry. I mean, that type of stuff. And then so he, he could do the whole lab work, all the lab work stuff, and he could do the blood, which I guess is scary for those people. If you make a mistake, when their blood would come in, he'd have to, although it was labeled and all that kind of stuff, when the blood bank or whatever, it was sent out, and Brad would get it, and I'd be back there. Brad would show it. He actually showed me, like I'd be back visiting with him, and of course it was all over my head. But he'd say, "Okay, now here's how you do such and such." Oh, okay, yeah. This is a centrifuge. And I'd listen to everything, but not for me. I mean, not smart enough. But I'd be back maybe visiting with him or something, and then he'd say, "Okay, Jim, I got some blood coming, being delivered here. I have to type it, and check it, everything. He had to do the whole spin it or whatever they do, and I'd say I'll leave and leave you alone, and I wouldn't bother him, until he got that done. But big gun nut, he was, Brad. But that was okay, except that put him. Well, he was also, can't remember the name of the guy, but he was also in the right-wing politic type of stuff. And this guy was on TV, local TV. Well, it was a syndicated, so it was local all across, And Brad was the guy'd come on, and Brad would try to get some of his work done, so he could go back there for the 15 minutes or 30 minutes and that was his lunch and break or something like that. And he would say, "Jim, I should be able to remember the name, of the so-and-so is starting. Come back and watch it with me." And I'd say, "I'm not interested at all in his politics." But there was several times, 2 or 3, I'd go back and he'd say, "Jim, just watch it with me, And I'd say, "Okay, well, I'll sit here and watch it with you until he lies or says something that is totally incorrect." And I swear to God, I wouldn't be there 5 minutes. And it was just, I'd walk out. And I was right. I remember one of the things was, Brad said, "Oh, the Democrats, they kicked him out of the hearing or the news thing, or was it? Well, I forget exactly what it was." And I said, "I'm sure they did not." And he says, "Yes, they did." He says, you can watch it here, right here." And so what happened? I should remember the guy's name. What a stupidity but Brad, who was smart, he ate it up, and they did. They came over and they, of course they'd said before on, coming up on such and such, they said, "You'll see that the so-and-so, the Democrat," and then it comes to the show, and there it is. And I said, "Brad, what's wrong with you? In Congress or in the legislature, they have rules. There are, so that all the news people can get their news. There are some where no cameras are allowed and no audio is allowed, where just so that this is people can ask questions, the news people, and they don't have cameras flashing and all that kind of, it's set up that way, and they have rules that they enforce." And what I said, he went to a place that said no cameras, news or whatever they call the news media, no news media with the cameras and that kind of audio. He knew he was going to be, and everybody knew he was going to be, and Brad wouldn't accept it, Oh no, that was just stuff like that. But Brad was a really nice guy, and but he got into guns big time. And then he also went, like he got a bunch of guns. Then he actually bought things to bury in his yard with, I guess, put the guns in there. Maybe it was the ammunition. And by the way, I was, a hospital security officer, armed. And at that hospital in Cass County, I had a full Cass County commission. Very few, even the reserve officers in Cass County did not have a full commission. They had a commission that was, you had the authority or whatever when the sheriff called you to, like the people who fly, or the airplanes, or the people who ride the part of the horse posse or whatever, those same guys. I was one of the few people that had a full, I was, all the time. I never really, I think I used it one time. I didn't arrest anybody, but I used it one time. And the rest of the time I never even mentioned, I don't think even the local police knew. Some of them, I guess, did. Well, I know they did because when there was two of us that worked there, hospital security. And when Cass County brought out our commission, well, in fact, there was a Cass County officer there who was a reserve officer. And so he was there. And I guess that's the guy that told, our commissions were brought out for us, and, Cass County, whatever. And the reserve officer who patrolled for them, I don't know how often it was. I was for the city of Raymore for, 9 years or something like that. I patrolled. I don't think I missed a night. And plus I worked some other time for them. But I never missed it. In like 9 years, I never missed. Well, wait a minute, for the last 2 or 3 years or something, I went to being a detective, I think. Yeah, because I was too much work for me, doing hospital security and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the commissions that came out, the reserve officer from Cass County, he said, "That's a full commission. You guys have a full commission. You have a full commission?" He says, "I'm a reserve officer and I don't have a full commission." There was a couple of times that the local police, the Belton police or whatever, like one guy was, the Belton officer just happened to show up at the hospital. And I never said anything to him. He showed up, and there was then a guy leaving the hospital that had been a patient, and this guy was really, really drunk. He was going to be driving. And then the Belton police officer just happened to be coming in. This guy's going out. And I said, "By the way," I said, this guy here is falling down drunk. He's really drunk." And he said, "Oh, okay." So then he went back and got in his car, and then I heard him call, on the radio, because we were on the same frequency with them. And he said, "Okay, well, I'm security reported this guy was intoxicated." He says, "I'm behind him." Well, and then, "Everything's okay so far." "Oh, everything's okay." Well, everything's okay. This guy was drunk. Now, if I had, but of course I thought that I shouldn't have to. If I'd have told the officer, "Hey, by the way, I'm," but I didn't do that. The only time I really did it was used it. Now there was another time, and I didn't use it then. Let me give this other one. Kind of, a guy pulls into the parking lot at night. He's carrying on or whatever, and then he's telling me, which was unusual. He was telling me, "Go ahead and call Cass County. Go ahead and call Cass County." And I thought, why is he telling me? Why wouldn't he say call the police, or or call the Belton police? But why is he saying call the Cass County? And I had a full commission. I could have said, I thought about it. I could have said, "Well, Cass County's already here," and but I didn't. And I called, on the radio, and I could talk directly about Belton PD, and I said, "There's a gentleman here in the parking lot, and he's demanding that I call the police for some reason, but he wants me to call Cass County." And so then the police came up, and then they jumped on this guy. They didn't hit him or anything else, but he had just had a confrontation with the police someplace. And so they put the cuffs on him, and then they took him away. The only time I used, and this would have uh, I would have been, I think I'd have been wrong to actually use it, but I did use it. I came into work at the hospital, and the head ER doctor, and he was Canadian, by the way. I had some fun with him over the time. I liked him. He was a great doctor. But I came in and he said, I just came on duty. In fact, I don't think I even got the time in. I had to, later I went down and wrote on my card, that the time. And, but he said, Jim, can you help us? He said, this lady over here brought this baby in, and the baby needs to go to Children's Mercy Hospital. Now, the Children's Mercy, I think a lot of major cities, maybe all of them, have a children's hospital. And if you got a kid that's really sick or something's really bad, or if they even come into the hospital, if you can transfer them, they need to go to Truman, to Children's Mercy. And he said, this lady's baby needs to go to Children's. She won't do it. He said, I've told her this and I've told her that. And he said the nurses went in and tried to tell her, and she's insisting that she'll go home and get her husband, and then, she'll take the baby. She wanted to take the baby home to the, and then she said, I'm going to get her, So then I go in the room. Ma'am, I think the ER doctor and the nurses have told you this baby, your baby, needs to go to Children's Mercy Hospital. And that's what that's what you need to do. And she says, no, I just want to, I said, look, I'll arrange to have a police officer go, and of course he was outside of, the city limits. I said, I will arrange to, and I would have, if she was close, I'd have gone and picked up her, whatever, I was going to do, I said, well, I'll have the police go by and bring your husband here. No, I'm going to go home or whatever. And I said, okay, well, we're going to have to do this the hard way then. I said, I'm a Cass County deputy sheriff, and I said, I'm going to take custody of your child, and your child is going to go to Children's Mercy Hospital. And she said, no, don't do that. You've taken away my other kids. Have all been, I said, by Cass County? Yeah, they've all been taken away from me. And I said, so this baby's going to go, are you going to make me, or are you going to, and she said, no, so the baby went to, I would have gone ahead and stuck with that, what I said. But I think I would have been, Cass County, I think, would have pulled my commission, because even though I was right in a way, but they'd have pulled that, which was fine with me. I didn't need it. I never used, that's the only time I ever used it. But I think probably I'd have probably been fired from, from the hospital I was working at. But I was prepared for, if that was going to, rather than have a kid die or something. So, anyway, I got a feeling I got sidetracked and I really got political. But anyway, President Carter's wife is dead, and it won't be long before he's gone. I hope no news person asks, Donald Trump, oh, what did you think about Rosalynn Carter passing away? And then when it, Jimmy Carter probably will, be going pretty quick. If I were a news reporter, there's no reason for a news reporter to ask Donald Trump. I mean, even if you're even if you want to get that, I wouldn't do it. If I were the news reporter, I wouldn't. Now, if you didn't know, but since we know, I don't know what Donald Trump, would say, except I don't think he could say anything because he is so stupid and so mentally ill and so deranged. There isn't anything that he could say that, he's not going to say. Well, they were good people. He's not going to say that. I don't know what he would say, but I hope nobody asks him. And I hope it doesn't get, it doesn't get printed. And, if it did, if they ask him, of course, it's not going to matter to these Night of the Living Dead Republican religious people. And I could leave the religious part off, I guess. The Trump supporters or whatever. They go along with anything that he says. And he says the stupidest and the craziest shit that there is. And you've got a large portion. I don't even want to think this or say it, but I'm going to. The rest of the world, like the United States is a key to NATO. And we have done the right thing all along with NATO, mostly. But if I were our allies, I would just be, of course, they would have to pick up, Trump, of course, Trump wanted to get us out. Trump tried everything. He was trying to get us out of NATO. And how do you think that would have gone for, can't remember the name of the country that's fighting Russia. I'm thinking of Katanga, but that's from French Equatorial Africa from a few years ago. That shows you how my mind is working. Anyway, guess time to bring this to an end. Eat some cookies. Yes, I'm a type 2 diabetic. Anyway, I'm going to upload this video, even though I have second thoughts. Although I can't think of any reason that born-again Christians would vote for Donald Trump or anybody like him. Maybe I'm just so detached from reality. Maybe I'm so prejudiced in some way or something. I don't know. I just don't understand. But if you look back, you'll see I've praised, those people, except for their 700 Club people and people like that. I just wish that we could come together, but I just don't see how it can happen. I don't see any way that you can work with the Republicans at all. Now, there are a few good Republicans. I mean, there's a few in there, but on the other hand, well, I don't know. I mean, a person, I guess those people are sitting there hoping and sure to themselves, they're, if there are some decent Republicans out there, but where is their courage? On the other hand, what good is it going to do if, they speak the truth and they're voted out, and then you get more Trump supporters? But believe me, one thing I do know is Donald Trump is super, super stupid. I'm 82 years old, and I can tell. And he's mentally ill, and I think I can tell about that too. I've had a lot of experience with that. So, God help us. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxa culpa.